All right, welcome to another Thursday Night Live. This is the final live of 2024. And whether you've been watching me from the beginning or you're a more recent subscriber, thank you so much for joining me. I really enjoy these Thursday night conversations, answering your questions, giving you a little bit of insight of what's going on in the market right now in real time versus a video that was made, a while ago that some things that may have changed. So I thought it'd be fun. I wanted to do something cool for our last live of the year. So I thought we'd do, I don't know if you guys are on Spotify or Apple Music, but they do a Wrapped given. And basically Wrapped is, the songs you listen to the most, the artists you listen to the most. So I thought it'd be fun to do a Wrapped with what has gone on in the market this year, where we started, where we ended up, what changes we're seeing now, what is happening in the market today. Again, if you're watching this live or on a replay, thank you so much for being here. If you're not yet a subscriber, please, it would mean the world to me. I am just about at 1,000 subscribers, which has been a huge goal of mine. I think we started the year with under 200, and we've really grown by making consistent videos, by interacting with a lot of you, and a lot of you have showed your support by subscribing and telling your friends to subscribe. And I've even got to meet a lot of you and help you buy or sell a house. So thank you so much for the support as always, and I look forward to another great live tonight. So I'm in the studio by myself. As always, drop a comment whether you're watching this live or the replay. Drop a comment. Let me know where you're from. I like to know where my viewers are watching from, and just helps me get to know you a little bit better. And as always, this is meant to be interactive. So please drop a comment, question. If there's something you saw in a video that you want more information about, or if there's something, or you just have a real estate related question that has nothing to do with Northern Michigan. A lot of the nuts and bolts and blocking and tackling of real estate are consistent across the board. So maybe I can help you with something, even if it isn't directly in Northern Michigan, whether you're a home buyer, home seller, somebody that's considering renting, or hey, even somebody that wants to potentially vacation in Northern Michigan and you're just trying to learn more about it. I'd be more than happy to answer any of your questions. We've got some great information to go over tonight. Hopefully make you a little bit more educated into what's going on in the Northern Michigan real estate market. So drop a comment below, let me know where you're watching from, and we'll get into it. 2024 has been a beast of a year, to say the least. We started, I was just thinking back as I was making these slides. We started about a year ago right now. The market really started to shift from being an incredibly hot buyer's market, incredibly hot seller's market, into less of a seller's market and more of a balanced market. Now, are we going to continue to be in a balanced market and transition into a buyer's market? At this point, it seems like I would say the market, if you made me pick if the market is a buyer's market or a seller's market right now, I would say we're moving more towards a balanced market. Now, that is being forced by both low inventory, high interest rates. There is still tons of demand out there. I had a call actually just a couple of hours ago with a buyer who's relocating here from Pennsylvania. There are still people that would love to come to Northern Michigan, but given limited inventory and higher interest rates, which affects buyers' purchasing power, it is making a little bit more difficult. So as I started this about a year ago in December, we started noticing it shift a little bit. Now it did come back the spring and summer and even into the fall a little bit, where strong selling seasons, and that's very common in Northern Michigan. I do think this year, leading into the end of 2023, leading into the beginning of 2024, I do think we got a little bit of election uncertainty, and there's obviously, if you remember back then, there was a lot of stress around what was going to happen with the election, and was it going to be contested, and how is this going to go down? And what we ultimately ended up seeing was an election that obviously was a little bit more contested and a little bit more animosity behind it, but it went just about the same way all of our elections go. Meaning we had two candidates, everybody voted and picked one, and now we have to see what that unveils. So I've been telling people this for a while. The third quarter, probably from Labor Day until the middle of October, towards the end of October, it got really quiet here, and I think a lot of that had to do with the election. And then it seemed like right before the election, people started to feel a little more confident what was going to happen with the world, and now we are seeming to pick up again. It is just such an interesting time in the sense of there's still a ton of people that want to buy houses here. There's still limited inventory, but there are also properties that are lagging on the market, and it's really boy, it's really the tale of two markets. I know I said that in the video last week, but that's really the best way to describe it. Is we have a lot of people, you got houses that go on the market and they get highest and best. You'll have a 1.5 or $1 million waterfront listing that will go highest and best and get multiple offers. And then you'll have a $500,000 house in Petoskey that takes a little bit to sell, and you have to do a couple of price reductions. So it's really interesting right now what's going on with each listing. And I would tell you, one of the things that we're working really hard to get a grasp on is we're getting a lot of sellers that are calling us now that feel like it's the time to sell because there's limited inventory. They don't want to wait till the spring. The weather hasn't been tremendously harsh right now. So the concept of moving in the wintertime isn't as scary as maybe it was other years. And pricing property is tricky because you can't go back and look a year ago or look up to a year ago because, the market was just different then. Even 6 months ago, the market has changed a little bit. So we started this year a little bit on the slower side. It got busy in the middle. And as of right now, the market is still a little bit slower, which, hey, look, if you're watching this video because you're interested in buying a house in Northern Michigan in 2025 now, it could be a good time because there are a lot of sellers that want to sell. And when things are a little bit quiet, maybe they're more likely to take a lower price now than hold it all winter and hold up their plans. So that is definitely something we're contending with. So I've got a good one tonight. We're going to go over the average sale price this year versus last year in a lot of these different towns that make up the areas that we service. So again, as always, if you have any questions, I'm going to leave this up here. Drop your questions and comments below, and I'll be sure to answer them. I know last week some people asked questions at the end, and there's a little bit of a lag, so I had just ended the stream and a couple of questions came through. So I'll make sure that doesn't happen again tonight. But 2024 was a beast of a year, and is this the big question I'm asking myself, and something I wonder about when I'm driving in the car is, is this how it is now? Is it the start or is it the end? Is this the start of the market correcting, or is this the end? And we're going to see 2025 pick right back up where we left off in the last year or two and go from there. So let's get into it a little bit. There were, in an attempt to make this as much like a Spotify Wrapped or Apple Music Wrapped or whatever Apple Music calls it, in our MLSs that we covered, there were 1,564 homes sold. Now, I want to talk about this a little bit because I've got a lot of friends who are realtors in much bigger areas, and this could be, a month or a couple of weeks for them. And this really indicates a problem not a problem, but one of the challenges we face is 1,564 homes. And this is in Sheboygan, Emmett, Grand Traverse, Antrim, Otsego counties. I mean, that's a pretty big area to have only 1,564 houses sell. So with as many people that want to move to Northern Michigan, we still need a lot more inventory to help them find houses. To break this down a little bit, there were 271 houses that sold in Gaylord. So Gaylord was by far the leader for the most houses sold. Petoskey was right around it. I always tell people that Petoskey, give or take, 10%, which isn't a big margin, always has around 200 sales a year. And it's been that way for a very long time. So if you're thinking about Petoskey and you want to know how many houses per year sell in Petoskey, it's usually right around 200. So Harbor Springs, 169, that's up for them. Harbor Springs typically is a little bit lower than that, more, closer to 150. Sheboygan, 164, that's pretty common for them. And Charlevoix, even Charlevoix is a little bit ahead of the game. I know typically in years past, they were closer to the 125, 130 marks. So Petoskey remained the same. I want to say last year, we should look this up, but I want to say last year, Petoskey had over 200 sales this year. So I think the units might be down a little bit. Now, I'm sure the average price is up because that's just the trend that we've been seeing in this area. So did buyers get any deals in 2024? This is a question I get asked a lot, is how hard was it to buy a house? Were people getting deals? 61% of the houses sold below asking, which is a lot more than 2023. 21% above asking, 18% at asking. So that means roughly 39%. Let me check my math. 39% of the houses sold for asking or above asking. And I think if you compare that to 2023, you would find that number's a lot different. And I'm even more curious of how this is going to, when I report back and do the 2025 Wrapped, what's that going to look like? So I'm going to make a note of myself because I'm really curious. It'll be fun. Obviously this is the first year we've been doing the YouTube lives. So we're going to have a lot of time in a year, we're going to be able to come back and look at a lot of these trends and compare it to the 20, we'll be able to compare the 2025 wrap to the 2024 wrap. I'm genuinely curious. If you have any predictions, I love trying to guess or predict how things are going to go. If you have any predictions of any of these numbers, please drop it in the comment. That way it's going to be there and we can come back in a year and see, were you right? Was I right? Was anybody else right? And have a better idea of what happened. So no, this is a really interesting statistic that 61% sold below asking. And I think if you would have asked me this a year ago, I would have predicted that because, back then 92% of the houses were selling either above asking or at asking. And something to even consider, if you wanted to break this down a step further to the 21% above asking or 18% at asking, there's also what's not factored in there, which is something to consider, is this could have been after a price reduction, meaning they didn't get their full asking price. They got their full asking price after they reduced it once or after they reduced it twice, because we've had that happen to us where we've had a listing that didn't sell right away, but then we reduced the price a little bit and we got multiple offers and bumped the price up. So, would you consider that house, did that house actually sell for its asking price or did it sell for a little bit less and we just reduced it at the right time? This is also an interesting statistic that I thought you would like. 84 of the houses, out of all the houses that sold, 84 only had one bed, 324 had two, 751 had three beds, 299, almost 300 had four beds, and 5+ beds were 106 of the listings that sold. So again, drop a comment if any of this surprises you, because one of the things that I love about doing these lives is, as someone who thinks they know the real estate, the Northern Michigan real estate market well, I learned something. I would have never been able to guess how many of these houses had one bed versus five beds. So it's really interesting to see, it's almost like a heat map of what people want. And it's surprising to me that, everyone always thinks that 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom houses are, really less desirable. But if you look at it, that's over 400 houses had 2 beds or less. And I think that's certainly an incredible number, meaning, look, there's almost more demand for houses that have 2 beds or less than there are that have 5 beds or more. So that's definitely something interesting to watch. So drop a comment. Let me know if you think about any of these numbers. And if you have any other questions about Northern Michigan real estate or what's going on here, I'm locked and loaded and I'm ready to answer them for you. Here's some fun statistics. And we can't publish this because although it's in our MLS, they checked the box that withheld the pictures from Zillow and Realtor.com. 6467 Indian Garden. This was not one of my sales, unfortunately. In Petoskey on Walden Lake was the highest sale in 2024, which came in at a whopping $9.25 million. And something I tell people, whether if you're buying in Northern Michigan, no matter the price range. Now, of course, if you want a beautiful home on a ton of frontage on Walloon, you're going to have to pay this kind of money. But the person that buys a $9 million house in Northern Michigan has the same access to the person that buys a $400,000 house in Petoskey has the same access to the lifestyle by about 80% as the person that buys the $9 million house, meaning you still get to go to the same restaurants, hang out in the same downtown. Look, you can still go on Walloon Lake. There's tons of public access on Walloon. Now, can you sit on your deck in your giant house and stare at it all day unobstructed? No, that's why it costs a little bit more. But I always tell people, for $9 million, you could buy a house anywhere, meaning the person that bought this house on Walloon could have bought in Miami, California, Texas, Florida, New York, anywhere. And they chose this area, which I think is really a testament to just how special Northern Michigan is. Another fun fact, the biggest closing month of 2024 was August with 188 homes sold. That doesn't surprise me because if you do it backwards, if somebody bought a house in August, that means they probably went under contract in June or July, which means they probably started looking in April or May, which lines up with everything I believe about our market up here. And also just shows sometimes it takes, this is a good timing analysis. It takes a month or 2 months to find a house, it takes a month or two to find a house and get a house under contract. It takes 30 to 45 days to close, sometimes a little bit more because the seller needs time to move out of the house. And, look, from start to finish, you're just about 6 months, which is why I always tell people, and I'm getting a lot of people that are calling me now, just start preparing for the spring market. They say, hey, Gino, I want to buy a house. I want to make sure I'm ahead of the game. I know it's going to take a little while or take a little bit longer than I expect. So a question I often get asked, whether it's on the lives or on the videos or just clients I talk to in, day-to-day work, a question I get asked often is how early should I start looking for how early should I call a realtor and start looking at houses? And I say, if you want to be here by a certain date, make sure back it up about 6 months to give yourself plenty of time. And that way you won't feel rushed. You'll be able to pick whatever you want. You'll get a great understanding of the market. If you have to give up, some time to let the seller move out, that'll be a possibility too. So that is definitely good advice. Is a good rule of thumb, start about 6 months, maybe 9 months, but 6 to 9 months ahead of when you'd like to be, whether it's here or anywhere. That's just a good rule to live by. Again, feel free to drop your comments if you have any questions about this, or you don't agree, or you have a different perspective. I'd love to hear from you. The biggest closing day, the biggest single closing day of 2024 was August 29th with 23 closings. And now, look, I have a lot of other realtors that watch these videos to get inspiration. If you're in a bigger market, 23 closings in one day is probably like a slow day for you. But in Northern Michigan, 23 closings in one day. And that typically that August 29th, the reason I think that was such a big closing day this year was because that's right before Labor Day, right before back to school. So a lot of people are trying to get into those houses or get those deals closed ahead of time. The biggest closing day of the week. Now, this one didn't surprise me. If you would have quizzed me on all of these, I might not have gotten how many one-bedroom houses sold this year, but I would have gotten this, right? The biggest closing day of the week in 2024 is Friday. My guess is if you went back and looked at since the beginning of time or the beginning of people paying attention to this sort of stuff, you would have found out also that is most of our closings are on Fridays, which is good news, bad news, because it's a great way to end the week, but it's also if something goes wrong on one of those closings, you don't really have the next day because the title companies and banks are closed on Saturday and Sunday. I often also get asked how many agents are in Northern Michigan, and the answer is there are 900 active agents in our MLS. Now, a lot of those agents just have licenses. They don't really sell a lot, but they pay their dues and they're part of the MLS. And I'm happy to report, unless something crazy happens in the next 5 days, we were in the top 10 of those. So out of 900 agents, we finished at number 10, which, look, I want to be number one, but 10 out of 900 isn't so bad either. So huge shout out to the staff, to the team that helps with the videos, to you guys. So I'm not going to promote us too much on this tonight, but definitely grateful to have the year we had, especially with a lot of the challenges, which we'll certainly talk about later. Now let's get into some of the towns. East Jordan is a fan favorite. I think that's one of the most up and coming communities. The median sale price rose from $270,000 in 2023 to $355,000 in 2024, and making it, believe it or not, making East Jordan still one of the most affordable towns in Northern Michigan. And I think definitely a lot of bang for your buck. In fact, I want to say this weekend, maybe Sunday, one of the days was really cold. I actually had I usually know, I live by my calendar. I usually know exactly what day of the week I did what. And with Christmas being in the middle of the week, it almost felt like a Sunday. So I'm having a hard time getting my bearings. But one of the days prior to Christmas, maybe it was 2 days before, I showed a house in East Jordan, and it was a foreclosure for $160,000. Now, we don't see a lot of $160,000 houses, and we certainly don't see a lot of foreclosures. So this makes me wonder, while we're talking about East Jordan, is this something, are we going to start seeing a few more foreclosures pop up? Are we going to start seeing those houses that, I remember when you could buy a $160,000 house in East Jordan all day, and it was a nice house. But now with values going up, to find a house that was, less than half of the median sale, that's an encouraging sign for a buyer. Also, I went to their downtown. I had never been. I had a client tell me about Iron Goat Coffee in East Jordan, so I stopped by. It is one of the cutest coffee shops I've ever seen in my life. I'm a huge fan of branding and the way you market things, and every inch of that coffee shop was meticulously created to, promote their brand and make you feel like it was a cool place to hang out. So shout out to Iron Goat Coffee. Maybe they'll give you a free black coffee the next time I'm there. So there was the average sale, the median sale. A lot of times I get asked the difference between median and average. The best way, I know the answer, the best way to describe it is the median takes, the average is just the total sales divided by the number of sales, and that's how you get the average. What is flawed about that, specifically when you're talking about real estate, and specifically when you're talking about a sample size of 60 versus a much bigger sample size, the median takes the outliers out and focuses on where the majority of the sales were and takes the average of that number. So that's why you see here, if you look at last year at East Jordan, their average price, the average was higher this year and way higher last year. That just means there were probably some really high waterfront sales in East Jordan, which doesn't necessarily tell the tale. And that's why we like to focus on the median price, because when you're talking about East Jordan, there's some parts of Lake Charlevoix and East Jordan, which is great, but those are some very expensive homes, and that sort of dilutes the true median or average sale of this area, which, to nerd out a little bit, one thing I like about Petoskey is Bay Harbor and Walloon. If you look at Petoskey in a whole, a resort township, Bay Harbor and Walloon really hammer or really take a lot of the big sales out, meaning the Lake Charlevoix version of the Lake Charlevoix to East Jordan version in Petoskey is Bay Harbor, which Bay Harbor is its own segment, which allows us to get more accurate information about Petoskey. So that's that. Boyne City, the median price only went up. If you went back and look, the median price rose by a lot more in East Jordan than it did Boyne City. And what I think is there's a lot of pressure in that sub 300 market. And I think if you were to ask me my professional opinion, I feel that a lot of these houses, the values at East Jordan were driven up just because there was so much. That 300 under price range in a nice area such as East Jordan is such a competitive price range that the more supply, the more demand. If there's more demand than there is supply, it's going to cause the prices to drive up. And I think that's what you're seeing happening in East Jordan as that becomes certainly an emerging community. So if you switch this over to Boyne City, the median didn't really go up that much. It went up, that's probably what, 1.5%. In fact, somebody's watching, they want to get their calculator out and fact check me. That's not a huge increase, especially if you look at inflation or the percent change in the CPI index. That's not a drastic change this year versus last year. So that'll be interesting. It seems like Boyne City might have found their equilibrium. I'm really excited to do the 2025 wrapped already just to see how that changed. And look, we'll do updates along the way. We'll probably start doing, quarterly updates, or maybe a segment of each show will be about what's going on, because these are the numbers. These are what matter. There were a lot more sales this year, but the price only went up a little bit, meaning to me, that's why I started the show by saying it feels like we're finding more of a balanced market, because there's a ton of sales, but the prices aren't skyrocketing like they did just a few years ago. So definitely something interesting to watch. Huge fan of Boyne City. I think that community is really well built. It's, centered around the water. They have a ton of great restaurants. There's a ton of great events there. Great place for 4th of July, whether it's 4th of July, whether it's the Santa Parade. Avalanche Mountain is one of my favorite places to hike. So look up Avalanche Mountain. It's like just over a 2-mile hike, but you get to the top of it and you've got some of the most stunning views of Lake Charlevoix you're ever going to see. A couple of pro tips. One, there's a disc golf course and a mountain bike track mixed into the hill. So if you're hiking, make sure your head's on a swivel. You don't get run over by anybody. I'm half joking. I've never seen that happen. But when you get to the top, if you call Lake Street Deli and order a sandwich, by the time you're at the bottom of the hill, it's ready to be picked up. And that is a fun way to spend a summer afternoon. So huge fan of Boyne City. If you're considering making a move to Northern Michigan and you want an area with high quality of life, great downtown, great schools, definitely consider Boyne City. Charlevoix, another one. Charlevoix actually saw the median price drop. And when I was going through this, it sort of shocked me. There were fewer sales and the median price in Charlevoix dropped this year. So that's going to definitely be something else to watch. When I saw that, I started to ask myself why, and I really looked deep at the sales, and I think it's just how it happened. And I think I mentioned this a couple of shows ago, but we had a house. It was listed. We had a buyer for a house that was listed at I should remember this, $375. And not only did he get some of his closing costs covered, but he got some of the repairs covered. So he ended up getting like $30,000 off the list price. And apparently this was just the year to get deals in Charlevoix. So again, that is something we're going to keep watching, because look, we've all talked about how expensive Northern Michigan has gotten, but if you're still able to get houses, and I know I get a lot of criticism for this, but I'm not here to debate if $300,000 or $400,000 is a lot of money or not a lot of money for a house. But but I will tell you, in Northern Michigan, $300,000 or $400,000 is still entry level. And to hear people being able to buy in, Boyne City, Charlevoix for that $350,000, maybe a little bit more, that's very encouraging. And I think that's going to give a lot of relief to buyers who have been struggling, specifically in those lower, more competitive price ranges. So again, it'll definitely be something to watch. Drop a comment if any of this surprises you, if you have any thoughts or comments, or if you've been looking, look, I've got some of the best industry research are those of you on this video who have been scouring Zillow looking at houses, because look, if you're looking for a house in Charlevoix between 300 and 400,000, watch the listings every day, watch the sales, you know what's going on. You're probably just as much of an expert in that finite market as anybody is. So if you've been watching any of these markets, let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. I'd love to hear from a home buyer's perspective of what they perceive to be going on and what their thoughts are. So I think that'd be a fun conversation. Petoskey did see a pretty big jump from see, there you go. I forgot about this slide. I thought we had 220 sales last year. It was 219. So we had 10% fewer sales this year, and about, what would that be? Probably a 4 or 5% increase in value. So Petoskey is still on the rise. The biggest reason that I think Petoskey's values continue to go up are there are just only so many houses here. I was just doing a market analysis for somebody right now who was thinking about listing their house in Petoskey. Between 600 and 800,000, there is one house on the market right now, and it sort of needs a little bit of work. It's been out there for a while. The one that's on the market, not the one that we're listing. So if you own a house in Petoskey and you're watching this and you're considering selling, it could be a great time. We certainly need more inventory. I get people that call every day looking for houses in Petoskey, specifically walkable to downtown or on acreage, or a short drive to downtown or near the water. Those types of properties are always going to be in demand, and I think it's continue to do so. I do wonder, with all the development going on around Petoskey, just outside of Bay Harbor, there's the Summit, which is going to come on next year, the year after. There's the condos next to the cliffs of Bay Harbor. There's going to be some inventory coming on the market. So I'm curious if that's going to happen to both the average sale price and then also the units sold. With this new inventory being created or being built by developers, is this number going to jump to 250 next year? Is it going to jump to 300 in the coming years? It'll definitely be interesting to see. Obviously, there's also a lot of rentals coming on the market. There's just a lot going on in Petoskey right now. And if you spent any time here, drop a comment below. If you're spending any time in Petoskey, if you've been in Petoskey lately, does it feel like there's a lot more development going on? Because as somebody that's here every single day, it feels like everywhere I go, there's something new being built, and I'm just curious what the rest of you feel like. So Petoskey is going to be interesting, the one to watch in 2025 to see, are we finally able to supply enough demand for all the people that want to move here, or are people going to continue to, we get most of the people that call me about Petoskey end up buying somewhere else. I mean, this year I've had people call that want to be in Petoskey, end up in Traverse City, Gaylord, Alanson. One thing I often tell people is, if you really want to be in Petoskey, you can be in Petoskey. If you're not completely sold on Petoskey and you're just looking for the most bang for your buck, there are other areas out there. So it's really up to you. I think the quality of life in Petoskey, with the hospital, the schools, the downtown, the gyms, the access to the ski hills, the water, makes Petoskey a pretty special place. And especially if you're around Petoskey during the holidays, you'll see why so many people want to be here. So again, it'd be incredibly interesting to watch what happens in Petoskey in 2025. Harbor Springs, I would say Harbor Springs over the last, where'd I go with my camera? Bear with me, my camera to shut off. I'm back. Sorry about that. The camera just decided to shut off for some reason. Harbor Springs over the last couple of years has seen the most growth in median sale price. There's been some big sales there. There have been a ton of people that have moved to Harbor Springs to work remotely. There were a lot, and one of the biggest reasons that we saw the median price jump in Harbor Springs was a lot of people that were buying short-term rentals. There was a period of time just after COVID where, if you know Boynton and Nubs, there's all the communities, the little ski villages between Hamlet West and some of the others. Those are selling for $100,000 over asking, because people were buying those and renting them out, for short term, for skiers, for golfers, for people that just want to be here in the summertime. We've started to see some of those sell. So there's not as much demand for the short-term rental as we've seen in the past. And I think that's surely because there's probably just an oversupply of them. And a lot of people realize that, it's not a bad way to offset the cost of owning a house or to invest in real estate, but it's a lot of work and it's maybe not as glamorous as they thought it was. So a lot of those people are considering selling those houses. Also, if you look at the numbers, that's a pretty big jump in median price from 484 to 550. What I think is so interesting about looking at the numbers this way is you can actually look at these six cells and say the average price, the median price went way up and the home sold went way down. That is simply the demand pressing on the limited supply, creating the price, causing the prices to go up. And Harbor Springs is, a lot of people call it the Hamptons of the Midwest. It is the quintessential resort town, and people just want to be there. And typically, people that move to Harbor Springs are a little bit more affluent, and they're a little bit less price conscious, meaning they're able to absorb and maybe pay a little bit more just to get a house there, causing that average median sale price to go up. So, again, Harbor Springs will be another good one to watch. There's some development going on there. There's some people selling some short-term rentals. There's condos. It'll be really interesting to see what happens in Harbor Springs in 2025. I know I say that about every single community, but I think it feels like Northern Michigan is at such a turning point right now that, what happens to each of these towns in a silo? Does East Jordan continue to be, an emerging town and those prices go up? Does Boyne City see a little bit of a bump? Does Petoskey, what happens there with all the inventory coming on the market? These are just questions I ask myself. And obviously, I love the business I'm in. I love the area I'm in. I'm a student of this business. I watch these numbers, like some people watch sports, and I think it's just going to be really interesting what happens going into 2025. And I'm here to guide you through it. Hopefully, by watching these, you get some confidence in us that we are paying attention to what's going on in the market. And if you ever need anything or have any questions about what is happening in Northern Michigan real estate or what we're seeing, a lot of times we see this stuff before the numbers show it, because all this number is showing you right now, the median sale price, the home sold. That's just showing you what happened in the last 6 months. Oftentimes what is happening today is a lot different than what these numbers show. So if you ever have any questions about what's going on in the market, and look, a lot of you text me or email me or call the office. I love it. We're here to guide you. Even if you're not interested in buying a house today and you're just trying to keep a pulse on what's going on in Northern Michigan, because we get those calls too, never hesitate to reach out, and we really look forward to helping you. Gaylord, which is another emerging market. This sort of surprised me. What surprised me about Gaylord, it didn't surprise me that the median sale price went up. That was expected. It actually surprised me how many fewer houses sold in Gaylord last year. And if you're following Gaylord at all, they have the Amazon distribution center just opened up. The Menards that opened up. There have been a ton of businesses that just opened up in Gaylord, mixed with it being still one of the most affordable areas if you want to relocate to Northern Michigan. I'm actually surprised there were 25 less sales, which, look, that's about 10% less. Again, that's another market that will be fun to watch going into 2025 to see what happens with a lot of these new developments, a lot of the new, the Amazon distribution center that is still very new. It's in its infancy. And I think you're going to see, usually when those come, what I'm told is you see a lot more people. There's some ancillary. It's like the auto industry. There's not, there's GM and Chrysler and Ford, but then there's all the businesses locally that support those. And the same thing happens with Amazon. So we actually sold a house to somebody who they're like a third-party contractor that delivers for Amazon. So that's, one of these sales that came from somebody that came here because of Amazon. So that will be interesting. Look, I love Gaylord. I think you get a lot of bang for your buck there. We talk about Traverse City a lot in terms of moving up north but not losing a lot of the conveniences of living in a big city. And I don't want to say that Gaylord is Traverse City because they're not the same thing. But Gaylord has a lot of the big box stores that Petoskey or Boyne or Charlevoix don't have. They have Kohl's and they've got Home Depot, Menards. We have some of that stuff too, but they've got a lot of restaurants. They've got a Jay's. Easy access. If you live in Gaylord, it's very easy to get to Metro Detroit. So there's definitely a lot of positives to living in Gaylord outside of just an affordable house. So look, the price went up to $275. It's still probably one of the lower areas on our list, but again, that'd be interesting to want to watch. And look, 271 sales, that's 71 more than Petoskey. So there are a lot of transactions going on. And if you think about Gaylord, it's a big geographic area. So again, be curious to watch some of these. I'd like to know your predictions. If you're watching these, drop a comment. Let me know. If you live in one of these areas, or you visit one of these areas, or you know one of these areas, guess what their home sales or their average price is going to be next year, because I think that'll be out there and it'll be a lot of fun to come back and look at next year. Sheboygan, we don't talk about Sheboygan enough. There is a ton of development going on in Sheboygan. There's what's called the Sheboygan Commons right now, which is going to be a giant mixed-use development. I'd like to report back a little bit more on that as I do some research. But look, the median price in Sheboygan was considerably higher with fewer sales. So a trend we're seeing, and I wanted to mention this to the audience tonight. After doing these slides and reviewing them before I came out with you tonight, it seems like the most demand, which shouldn't surprise anyone, is in the areas with lower price houses. I mean, if you look at Gaylord, Sheboygan, East Jordan, those sub 300 markets are being driven up like crazy just because there's not very many areas where you can find a house under $300,000 anymore, which to me is the most coveted market. I can't tell you how many times we get people that call that want to say 300,000 or below, which once upon a time you could buy just about anything for that within reason. But we're seeing that a lot more now. And those houses are still out there. I just had a conversation with a buyer today who's looking for 300,000 and below. They're relocating here from Pennsylvania. And they had a couple of realtors discourage them and say, you're never going to buy a house. And I don't agree. I think if you're realistic with what 300,000 gets you, which these people certainly were, there are houses out there. And especially with interest rates causing prices to stay pretty low or stay lower, I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities for buyers. So if you've been looking for a house and you've got a little bit of buyer fatigue, specifically in the first quarter or two of 2025, I think you're going to see some opportunities that you may not have seen otherwise. And again, to talk more about Sheboygan, if you're not familiar with Sheboygan, it's a great riverfront community. They've got good schools, close to Mackinac City, close to 75. Mullet Lake is just down the road. The Sheboygan River, which is I think the Sheboygan River, in terms of waterfront property values, in terms of bang for your buck, I love the Sheboygan River. If you have a house on the Sheboygan River, you can go down to Mullet Lake. You can go up to Lake Huron, even to Mackinac Island. It's a fun day trip. It's part of the Inland Waterway. The Hackmatack restaurant is located on the Sheboygan River. And one of my favorite things to do is take a trip on Mullet Lake, end 5, 6 o'clock at night, pull your boat up to the dock, get off, go have dinner at a really cool restaurant. And again, I don't think Sheboygan gets enough credit. However, I have a prediction that we're going to see Sheboygan start to gain in popularity. There's some really cool stuff happening there. Hey, they're getting a Taco Bell. So what else do you need besides that? But no, in all seriousness, there's some really cool developments. Sheboygan Commons is something we're going to talk about in future videos. I think once you see somebody make a big investment like that in a town, that others follow. So there's going to be a lot of change in Sheboygan in the coming years. Indian River, this one is near and dear to my heart. This is where I grew up. It's where I went to high school. It's a smaller market. However, they had almost 40% more sales in 2024 as they did in 2023. The average price there, $335,000. And I'll tell you, for $335,000, you can get a cute little house in a nice subdivision in Indian River. The schools are improving. There's a lot happening in that downtown. A friend of mine from high school bought the ice cream shop and made it nice. Exit 310, great restaurant downtown. If you're looking for a higher end subdivision, Links Estates, which comes with a boat slip, some of the houses are on the Indian River Golf Course. That is a great community. It's been one of my favorite communities my whole life. And if you're looking for a house with, it's a little nicer, for $500,000 or $600,000, a house that would be $1 million in Petoskey Harbor Springs will be, again, $500,000 or $600,000 in Indian River. And I had a listing in Indian River, a very nice house for $700,000. Somebody sold, it wasn't my buyer, but somebody sold a $1.5 million house in Harbor Springs to buy the $700,000 house in Indian River. And I think as the world gets a little bit more expensive, you're going to see buyers being a little bit more price conscious. And if you're not tied to Petoskey or Harbor Springs, or you don't have to be there because your office is downtown or your kid goes to school there, Indian River in the summertime is one of the best places in the history of the world as far as I'm concerned. You got boating, you got the rivers, you got the beaches, you got the cute downtown, you got Ken's Village Market for donuts in the morning. So Indian River is another one to watch. Again, even if you want to be close to Petoskey, the west part of Indian River is 20 minutes away. You get in the car and before you know it, you're there. So I know a lot of people that live on the west side of Indian River who work in Petoskey, and they don't complain about the commute. So if you're considering buying a home in Northern Michigan and you're a little more budget conscious, I would definitely consider Indian River. So drop your questions in the comments below. We're going to talk about some of the challenges, what to expect coming into 2025. And again, just do my best to make you as educated as possible and answer any questions you might have. So let's talk about the challenges we're going to see coming into 2025 and what this means for you. We talked about this earlier, but if you're considering buying a house in 2025, make sure you're prepared. And this is more to make your life easier than it is to benefit me or your realtor or anybody else. Make sure you talk to a local lender and get pre-approved so you know exactly what you can afford and what types of loan programs are available for you. Can you get a VA loan? Can you get an FHA loan? Are you going to go conventional? Are you going to go jumbo? Those kind of things matter when you're deciding whether or not to buy a house. Interest rates are going to be something we talk about. You're never going to hear a real estate agent get on a public forum and not talk about interest rates. That is going to be the biggest variable of what happens in the 2025 real estate market. I'm hearing in the third or fourth quarter, the second half of 2025, we're going to get some interest rate relief. It's just how much. I had a conversation with somebody at a party and they were saying, we just need to get these interest rates down around 5% again. I don't think that's going to happen. I think we're going to see interest rates, I think between 6 and 6.5 is realistic. I don't know that we're going to get them in the 5s. Now, I would love to be wrong. I think it's really going to open up the market and cause prices to go up again. I haven't heard anything, and I follow this stuff closely, but I haven't heard anything that leads me to believe we're going to see interest rates get that low. Flex your flexibility, meaning be flexible on the area, be flexible on the kind of house you want. I'm never going to tell you to buy an area you don't want to be in or buy a house you don't want to buy, but the more flexibility you have, and look, we get some buyers that are incredibly flexible, like the person in this picture, and we get some buyers who are not flexible. And I'll tell you, the ones that are flexible or the ones it's not, and I understand it's not even up to you. If you have the ability to be flexible, meaning you work remotely, you're not tied to a specific area, the more flexible you are in what you want, the better chances you are of having success as a buyer. Sweeten the deal. Make your offer cash. Make it not contingent on a home sale. Either waive your home inspection or make it a short home inspection. Do an appraisal guarantee. Give the sellers some opportunity to move out of the house. Those are the kind of things that you can do to sweeten the deal, because once we see, especially when the spring market gets here, I think we're going to see some of these houses become competitive again. And if that happens, you want to make sure that you can make the deal as sweet as possible for the other side. Don't go too far, meaning don't go too far away from, when I made this slide, don't go too far has a couple of connotations. One, don't go too far away from where you want to be. Meaning, again, I just talked about it a minute ago, how Indian River, living in Indian River, driving to Petoskey, that's fine. Don't buy a house in Sheboygan because you got a lot of bang for your buck and now have to commute to Petoskey every day, because we've had people buy houses that have come to us and said, hey, I don't mind being a little ways away. And then they buy a house and the winter comes and they realize that summer drive that only took a little while, when we start to get snow, becomes a lot more treacherous. So don't stray too far away. As we end tonight, be sure to get any of your comments in, because we're only going to be on here a little bit longer. I like to try to keep these under an hour so I don't take too much of your time. Specifically, if you're watching these on the replay, I want to make sure you can get through these and get all the information that you need. Once again, thank you to all of you who have subscribed. If you're watching the channel and not yet subscribed, it means a lot to me. It definitely helps us make better videos, and we've got some really cool stuff coming in 2025. Just to kind of give you a sneak peek, we're going to try to give you a better idea of what it's actually like to live in Northern Michigan. So a lot less of me sitting in the studio, as much as I love being here, a lot less of me staying in the studio, a lot more of me just in the communities, whether it's in Petoskey, in Gaylord, in Traverse City, just trying to give you a look into what it's actually like to be in Northern Michigan, and trying to just be as authentic as possible. That way you can, familiarize with the area, learn a little more what it's like, learn a little more about myself, and hopefully just make the whole process a lot better. So what does this mean as a buyer? After all of this, we've said all the values, what does, to end the year on a positive note, or end the year, to put a bow on this year, what does all this mean? As a buyer, I think you're going to have a lot more choices going forward. As long as interest rates stay high and the inventory starts to build up, it seems like buyers are having more choices than they have in the past, allowing them to be a little bit more picky. And look, it's not lost on me that 2 or 3 years ago, I remember having to tell buyers, they'd go see a house, they want to write an offer, and they would say, how much time do I have to think about it? And I'd say like 10 minutes, because they would have to act so quickly. But it's nice as we start to see the market get a little bit more balanced. It's just going to make the entire process better for buyers than it has been in the past. Meaning, you're not going to, there was a time when we used to have to tell people, you're going to have to write 8 offers to get one accepted. Now, that's not the case anymore. It's more like 1 or 2. Maybe you get beat once or you will get the next house. But, we're not seeing people have to write as many offers to win in bidding wars. It's not so. I think the buying, at least as of right now, and again, keep coming back to these lives, and I'll keep updating these, with information from the trenches of what we're seeing every day, and that's something that I think makes me unique and makes these videos unique. Is 2 hours ago I was having a conversation with a client on the phone, and now I'm on YouTube telling you exactly what to expect going forward. So you're definitely getting the most inside information about how to be successful and what's going on in the Northern Michigan real estate market as possible. Now, maybe you're a seller. For a long time, I thought only buyers would watch these videos, but I've actually had a lot of people reach out to me who own houses in Northern Michigan. And what does that mean as a seller? I still think it's a good time to sell. Unless you bought your house 2 or 3 years ago or last year, you're still going to see an incredible gain on equity. So make sure your house is in good condition. Make sure you price your house appropriately, meaning if you call me up to list your house, we're going to do an equity analysis, a market analysis, and I'm going to tell you exactly what your house is worth, in my opinion. Now, it's a lot harder to do that than it's been in the past, especially when the data we're looking at, those sales might be stronger from a stronger market than the market we're heading into. So we don't always get the prices right to begin with, but oftentimes 1, maybe 2 slight adjustments cause the market to react. And I've had listings, look, this has happened recently. This happened before the market was hot. You'll get a listing that's listed at 700,000, nothing will happen. You'll drop it to 675. You'll get a bidding war. Sellers are a lot smarter now than they used to be for videos like this. No, I'm just kidding. No, but videos like this, more information out there. You can go on Zillow and see every single time a house has been listed, what the previous owner paid for it. A lot of buyers know their way around equalization and the county website. So buyers are a lot more intelligent, which I think is cool, because by the time they call me, they know, they already know what it took me 2 or 3 months to educate them with before. So buyers are a lot smarter. As a seller, if you want to sell your house in 2025, make sure it's priced well, make sure it's in great condition. And as far as timing, I would say anywhere between the middle of January and the spring will be the best time to sell this year, because there are still a lot of buyers out there and just not enough houses for them. So as we wrap up, please drop any questions you might have before we get going. Before I get going, and I'd love to answer them. If I miss them, I promise I'll answer them in the comments. So again, while I wait for those final questions to come in, thank you so much for a great year. We're just under 1,000 subscribers, which was a huge goal of mine. This year, we started right around 200, meaning we gained a lot of traction this year, which again is going to allow me to make much better videos for you. And if there's ever anything you want to know, if there's a specific area that you're interested in or a specific market you're interested in, I'd love to help you. All World said, thank you. Great information. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. I'm happy to do so. I had no idea what was going to happen when I started making these videos. I thought, worst case scenario, it's going to force me to pay attention to the intricacies of this market and let me know exactly what's going on. So it's certainly done that. This is something I hope I can do forever. He was on a couple of lives ago, but I hope my son's able to pick this up one day and run with it. But I love doing these videos. I love getting to know you guys. This is my way to give back to an industry, to a community that's done so much for me. And I'm very lucky to live the life I live, do the job I do every day, and eternally grateful. So if there are no other questions, I'm going to let you go for the night. Stay tuned for the next one. Happy New Year. I hope you have a great, safe holiday, and we will talk soon.